Hey everybody, very late, like a week.
Did you hear the intro music?
Yeah, I'm listening.
Oh.
Very late. That sucks. It's a week late, but that's because I was busy doing family shit and like trying to enjoy my summer, and reading about murdering psychopaths was just like not nearly high on the priority list. Fuck that shit. So anyway, all right, so let's do it. So today we're going to talk about the Wineville chicken coop murders. Me and Kirrah kind of talked about this already. We didn't talk about it, but I did mention it last episode. Did you all enjoy Albert Fish? Probably not. Yeah, I don't. That's a weird question.
Was that the last one we did?
Yeah, the last one we did was Albert fucking Fish, and here we are, doing another raging psychopathic lunatic, and we're gonna do one. It's around the same time as Albert Fish 2. It's the early 20th century, so it's very old and disgusting and dirty, like it was the last two episodes. I sometimes don't mean to do this, but I did this the last time I did a bunch of fucking cases that only took place in California. So, and that's because like my train of thought, once I'm on this like train, I'm like, oh, here's another one. And these books, a lot of these books that I read, they bring up the same, few people, but then every now and then they drop somebody in there I've never heard of before. And I mentioned the movie The Changeling, that was technically based on the chicken coop murders, but it was about Walter Collins, who was a victim of the chicken coop murders, and we'll talk about him too. But anyway, so before we get into any of that, who we got? Kirrah's here.
Hello,
Puppet. We're drinking the Grimoni again, which is an Amaro Nonino Negroni. Jesus, that's a lot. Amaro Nonino Negroni, that my coworker put me on, and I love every part of it. It's actually pretty good, and I don't even like Negronis, but this one's pretty legit. So try it. It's Amaro Nonino, which is an Italian aperitivo, very similar to Aperol, or more like Campari, and then some sweet vermouth, and we used Empress gin. So yeah, go get all of that shit, put it in a cocktail shaker and stir it. Don't shake it. Stir it for 30 seconds until the ice kind of melts to, it opens up a little bit, and then you put it over fresh ice. Don't strain it. Just strain it over fresh ice. Boom. Done. Drink done. All right. So I'm not happy about this, and I'm not happy that I put myself in this situation again, because, researching Carl Panzram and researching Albert Fish and like all them, 20th century psychopaths is so fucking stressful, and it's so irritating when you're like, you're just trying to be normal. And then before you know it, you're like, ooh, another child predator. Signed up for that. So what we're going to do is we're just going to make the Wineville chicken coop murders 3. Bad things happens in 3s. We had Carl Panzram, we had Albert Fish, and now we're doing Gordon Stewart Northcott. That is his name. He sounds like a fucking serial killer.
Of a creep.
That's because he was. So yeah, let's do it. We don't have much time, so let's do it. Okay. Try to get as close. Well, don't get as close as you can, but you don't want to sound like you're in a dungeon either. So, episode 17. Gordon Stewart Northcott was born in... I'm going to fuck it up. He was born in Blodworth, Saskatchewan, which is in Canada.
I thought Saskatchewan was fake.
Nope, it's Indian.
I didn't know that was real.
Nope, it's just Native American.
Oh.
He was born November 9th, 1906, which makes him a Scorpio. Sounds about right. Scorpios are wild. And you'll see with his arrogance, you'll get it. That's a Scorpio, right? Yeah, because Sal's a Scorpio.
November?
Mm-hmm.
That's not Scorpio. Is
He's
it?
November 18th. Yeah, because Mama's October 23rd.
Oh, that's true.
So, his parents were Cyrus George Northcott and Sarah Louise Northcott. Now, I do want to say this first. In the book, they constantly referenced these people by their middle names. And I wasn't really quite used to that. That was weird. I was like, why do they keep calling Gordon Stewart Northcott Stewart instead of Gordon? And part of me was like, was that a thing? And I did look it up, so I don't know if it's a thing or not. They call his father, even though his father's name is Cyrus George Northcott, they just call him George. Sarah Louise Northcott is just called Louise, the whole book.
Maybe that's how Saskatchewanians.
Yeah, maybe that's how they get down in Seatown. That would be Canada. Mm-hmm.
Drake is.
We beefing with Canada right now. I'm still not happy about all that smoke from earlier this week.
I wasn't happy about the price of Drake tickets.
Facts.
So yeah, I got a lot of problems.
So they had a daughter, Winifred, and another son, Willie. She had 5 children total, but only 3 survived. According to George, when Willie died, she very nearly went with him. Several years later, Gordon was born. And I'm saying Gordon. Stewart was born. Winifred would later say this about George, the father. He was, quote, a man of highly nervous temperament, of a violent, uncontrollable temper, and suffered from severe headaches. She said that he was an avowed atheist. And while the Northcott's mother came from a very, very religious stock, even religious to a point of fanaticism, very romantic, and had a most vivid imagination, when children were coming, George and Louise both rebelled at the thoughts of the trouble and restrictions that parenthood would impose upon them. They needed abortion.
Okay.
They were separated after 5 years of married life, but came together when Willie, the second child, died of pneumonia. Louise was deranged at this time and cried continuously. She said, "I will curse God and die. He has taken my baby." When later, Mrs. Northcott discovered that she was again an expectant mother, her rage knew no bounds. Her husband advised her to destroy the unborn child at all costs. This Miss Northcott tried to do by violently jumping, excessively horse riding, and many other measures. 2 months before the child was born, Mrs. Northcott was kicked by her husband in a rage, which injured her spine. When Stewart was born, his mother at first refused to look at him, then suddenly became obsessed in her devotion to him. He had everything he wanted. There was no discipline that was ever exercised over him. And the consequence was that the slightest discipline threw him into a fit of rage. So he was a brat. He lived in a world of dreams and was a world unto himself, end quote. Now, Stewart's death certificate would later show that George and his sister Winifred were his parents.
Yikes.
Louise had even asserted that she was not Stewart's mother. And when asked when he was born during the trial, Louise said, "I don't know." And there was an attendant at the who spoke later. This was after this was at the end after he was arrested. There was an attendant of the hospital that Stewart was born in that claimed that the woman who had the baby appeared to be, quote, a woman of 30 to 35. Louise would have been nearly 40. She not a young woman in her late teens, which is what Winifred would have been. She claims she remembered this, but there's no real proof of that. Then they can't figure out why she would feel like this one pregnancy was so distinctive. But this woman came out and was like, "Yeah, I remember him being born." It was like, "Bitch, you work in a hospital. How you remember anybody being born?"
Yeah, I remember him being born.
Do you know how many white babies were born in the same hospital?
Probably all of them.
Unless she said, "Yeah, I remember because when we brought him out, he wasn't crying." That's special. Like, that's a distinctive thing. That's something you will remember. Yeah, that's that little motherfucker that popped out that wasn't crying. And he wasn't dead. He just didn't give a fuck. He just came out.
Clearly in 1906, everyone was a liar.
Yeah, everybody was fucked up. Well, everybody was also just stupid. So, now it is also possible that Luis just didn't know the year because people just didn't really seem to give a fuck about anybody back then. But she seemed to really love this boy. I think we could all say that she was suffering from, what is it that pregnant women end up having at the end? Post-traumatic stress, or what do they call it when it's pregnant? When it's women?
Oh.
Why is it escaping me?
Because we don't have any
postpartum
in our family.
Yeah, we don't have no kids here. Postpartum. I think it's safe to say that she was postpartum. I mean, I think she just didn't want to be pregnant either. And I mean, same. So the fact that like she was constantly in this situation where she was pregnant all the fucking time was probably very increasingly more insane to her and making her more crazy. So she probably just did it.
She's the one that had the 5 kids.
She is, but you know, you having sex with your husband and prophylactics.
Yeah.
You know, birth control.
Yeah.
Yeah. That wasn't, you know, I don't even know if those things existed. When did the condom exist?
God, I hope it wasn't in the 1900s. Because A, no one was using them, clearly.
Obviously.
And B, they would probably have been made of metal or something. Like, it just...
They're like, basically, there's this ambiotic sac that comes out of a cow.
Ew.
We shave it off and we put it on our dicks. And there you go.
Ugh.
Sperm can never escape. And you were like, and so how did you get there?
Because there's too many serial killers being born.
Yeah.
So.
And it's like that one joke where it's like, who's the first person who decided that we needed to drink milk? I think that was Michael Che. When Michael Che was like, who was the perverted bastard that sucked a cow's titty and was like,
Ew. That's so gross. But yeah, who did it?
Like, who was number one? Who
done it?
Who is that guy? All right, so
Gross.
That's so nasty. But by the time, you know, Northcott popped out, she fucking loved him. And she would smother him with affection. This is what she told them at her trial. She said, quote, "There could not have been any person kinder or better in any way than you have been to me. You are the only one that has ever brought me any joy or happiness in my old gray life and has always used me right and given me any love."
That sounds personal.
That's what she said about her son.
She's confused.
Mad confused. That's what she said about her son. She was like, shit, I love him. Now, there were rumors that she dressed him as a girl and treated him like he was a girl until he was an adult. Now, here's the crazy part about this. That's not all that weird. Because apparently, and I did not
dressed like a girl part?
Yes, because apparently, and I did not research this further, apparently women used to do that. And here's what kind of confirmed it. Remember we were talking about going to see Insidious and I said, oh, I'm going to start with 2 and I'm going to watch them. I watched the 3rd one again. I watched the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th one yesterday. I watched the 3rd one and there's a part in Insidious where, and I mean, that's like do you know that character that haunts Elise in the movie? Who's technically haunting Josh, Patrick Wilson's character.
I do not remember.
Okay. So there's a character that's haunting Josh, and it is a female ghost that has like showed up in his pictures and shit since he was a kid.
Okay.
But then when you get to the 3rd one, you find out that this haunting is this cross-dressing
that escalated.
Psycho
That escalated so quickly.
Yeah. Who literally, his mom would dress him up as a girl because she wanted him to be a girl. And then when he would say, like, I can't remember his name, but let's say his name was Charles, and he would say his name is Charles, and she was like, no, your name is Mary.
Okay.
Bitches, like, that apparently was a thing, like, where women would do that. And it also made me think about Pet Sematary.
Because the little boy was dressed
up in that fucking gown. So anyway.
Strange.
Very strange. And I was just like sitting there thinking, I was like, that's funny, because I was supposed to look that up for this episode and I didn't.
Oh.
Well, because
I'll review that at a later date, I suppose.
We'll do that. But I was literally just thinking, I was like, why? What was that about? And it even said in the book that actually that wasn't even really that uncommon. Now, this could be true, but there is also the possibility that it was likely stirred up by the news. I mean, we learned that in Albert Fish. Once these cases became, over sensationalized, they took them and they fucking ran with them. And they were like, yeah, he was a homosexual, so he must have dressed up as a girl as a child. It's like, no, that's don't. Do you got proof of that?
It sounds like things escalated very quickly up there.
Yeah. And I'm going to preface this right now. This is going to be very quote heavy because honestly, a lot of the court documents exist, so they have the verbatim text, and I really don't see a reason to paraphrase. So, now this was interesting. Quote, the over affectionate mother produced sissies or passive homosexual males, while the rejecting, overprotective, and dominating mother produced the delinquent, the difficult behavior problem children, and some substantial percentage of criminals. So I guess the fathers just ain't had nothing to do with it. Because
of course they're not going to blame the male for any of it, because they never did.
Yeah, because you're sitting up here talking about, oh, well, these women, they're the ones that rear the kids. So if she's overly affectionate, he's going to end up gay. And if she's not affectionate enough, but overprotective and dominating, she's just going to create a criminal. And low key, when I thought about it, I was like, it ain't wrong.
I mean,
but it don't feel completely right either.
Because it's when genetics kick in, like it's like, DNA is a thing for a reason. Yeah. Of course, if this dude has a history of being crazy and the mother doesn't, there's going to be chances.
But that's the thing.
Of the kid being crazy.
The mother does.
She
does in this case.
In this case, she does. But in the instances where it's like the mother was, well, honestly, if your husband or whoever you fucking with is crazy and you don't realize it, you got to be a little crazy yourself. And if you got to be crazy enough to have a baby by him, then
depending on how crazy he is.
Depending on how crazy he is.
Yeah.
I mean, back then, clearly everyone was crazy.
Everybody was a little off, yeah. Now, Northcott testified. He said, and this is scene, action. About the relations. My relations to other members of our family. Not an effort, gentlemen, to explain why I had committed this terrible crime called sodomy. But when a child, a little boy of 10 and 11 and 12, as I was at the time, is taught those things by that man who should teach them everything that is right and good and decent, but he teaches you things and you do them. Do them from the first. They seem right to you. And they seem right to me now. I know it's the most terrible of all crimes, but when you commit these things from babyhood, not childhood. I'm going to start using that.
Babyhood.
It takes a terrible shock to show you what is right and what is wrong. And I believe that shock has been brought to me. I testified how this woman, Louise, his mother, had proved herself more than a woman. Had went above mother love, had went greater heights than any mother love could ever carry a person. How she had only raised me as her own child and baby. She did that to give me a name, and how she lived with this man who had committed the most terrible crimes upon his own daughter. She did that, although she had lived all those years with the worst hate in her heart, which was only natural for this man. She lived with him under the outward aspect of a wife for the purpose of giving me a name and saving her daughter. The dad basically was like, Stewart knows I am not his enemy. I wouldn't try to frame him. I gave the boy every cent of my money. I have lived with Mrs. Northcott for 42 years and happily until about 5 years ago. That was 1923 when she developed this intense love for this boy.
42 years.
Yeah. Now, here's why this part is important, because you're probably thinking, first of all, he's testifying. Why is he testifying? And why is he speaking like an attorney? Because he's his own attorney. Gordon did not have an attorney. So he's speaking for himself. He's basically saying that him and his mother had this great relationship, and she had to live with this man who molested her daughter and had a baby by him, and she raised that baby as her own, and he's a piece of garbage. And his father is basically like, not true. Never said that. None of these things are true. I don't know. I honestly don't know who will ever find out it's true. We've seen what happened with Albert Fish and Carl Panzram. Them motherfuckers been through some shit because their parents failed. It could very well be true that George was not the best dad. It could also be true that he was just sitting there idly allowing everything to happen. Is it true that he molested Winifred and had Gordon? Who knows? I mean, honestly, we don't know. We'll never know. But what we do know is that Mrs. Northcott not only supported him while he was at trial, she supported him when he was murdering people.
Yeah.
So now the question is whether or not Stewart's relationship with his mom in this whole speech that he has is a part of their plan to divert attention and blame onto somebody else, which would be George.
This is already too much.
Messy. So George would go on to say that he was her God. George believed that Louise was simply sacrificing her own child, who was Winifred, to save Stewart. There are no photographs of him in girls' clothes.
Thank God. Question mark?
Maybe. And low key, like, maybe they just ain't had no pictures. That's how I looked at it. You know, maybe it's one of those situations where she's like, I know this is kind of weird. I ain't taking no pictures of it. Like, I ain't that creepy.
Like, it's not that serious.
So, what did he have going on, though? Well, he was apparently covered in hair. I know.
What?
That was a dodgeball.
What?
That was out of nowhere.
Hair? They
nicknamed him the Ape Man.
Okay.
He was covered in hair. He had a weird face, too. He was apparently permanently smug, so he donned an arrogant smile that either made him look like a demon or a douchebag.
Yeah.
And you'll
like
see.
Everybody up there in Wrigley.
Oh, fuck. And it is also believed that Stewart picked up the flu in 1919, and his mind never came back the same. Apparently, he had a few bad falls as well, and he like slipped on ice, and it led to a bunch of brain hemorrhages. So we got a few things going on here. It's kind of like the question we asked with Carl Panzram when it was kind of like, well, yeah, he could have been fucked up because of how they raised him, but he could have been fucked up because they poured boiling water into his brain. I think that would fuck up anybody. His sister Winifred would get married to John Clark and have 4 children, one being Sanford Clark. She was born in
names.
I know, right? Sanford Clark was born in 1913. We'll talk about him later because Sanford is a big part of this story. Now, Stewart was a classy bitch, okay? He enjoyed Claude Debussy, which
nice blanket.
He enjoyed Claude Debussy, who is a pianist, he's a classical pianist. He enjoyed Beethoven. He likes Shakespeare. He liked Dickens. He was an actual professional musician. He used to play the pianos
Who is this?
This is Gordon.
Oh.
He used to play the piano at the movie theater. And he would
wearing those dresses did something.
Oh, okay. He was like, I'm just a sweet transvestite.
Very frank.
From transsexual. Oh. Now, he would spend all night drawing and writing poetry. So he was creative, but none of his poems rhymed, which is like, well, is it really poetry? No, I'm just joking.
Words.
By 1924, he and his family left Canada and moved to California. George was working as a contractor, and Louise was working at the LA County Hospital. She was doing laundry there. Stewart also got a part-time job at a store, and so car. I always say cars because as a Chicagoan, I'm so used to saying car. Get in a car.
Yeah.
So when I have to say car, I say Carl's.
Isn't that a speech impediment?
Yeah, it's probably a little bit. Because I say he sold Carl's. That's not.
Instead of.
That's human trafficking.
like people?
Stewart got a part-time job at a store. He was selling cars while he was in school. And at 15, Gordon made his first attempt at molesting a child.
What?
Yeah.
What? They were doing so well.
Were they?
I mean, better than most.
Was he doing
His
well?
mom was doing laundry instead of like, you know.
I mean, everything was quite normal. Yeah. So he got arrested for it. But it can't really be confirmed that this story was true or around what time he started molesting children for real. But there was an incident in 1925 with Northcott and a friend named Claude Scott. Claude Scott had a brother. His name was Philip. They call him Philly. His age was around 9, 10, maybe even 12. But Scott reported Stewart, and he was arrested on a statutory charge. Because I think this was before the rape. They didn't use words like that, so they just called it a statutory charge. It would eventually be dropped, and Stewart was put on probation. Apparently, Stewart really loved Philly. This is another one of those situations like Carl Panzram and Albert Fish, where they all had that one person that they loved, like really loved. Mm-hmm. So Stewart loved this kid, Philly, and he would cry when he played Philly's favorite tune, which was Song of Songs. I didn't look this up, but I think Song of Songs is that song that they play on Ice Cream Truck.
Oh. God,
I think that's it.
About that song.
And if it isn't it, I just made this creepy.
I was going to say, if it were, it would fit.
In 1926, there was a scandal with 4 boys. So here we are. Following year, there's 4 new boys. There were other allegations with one from a manager at Ralph's. That's where Stewart worked. He worked at Ralph's in Pasadena.
And that story's still there.
I was about to say, which is probably the one you lived across the street from for years. Where was I? So the worker claimed that Walter Collins, and we will talk about him too. Walter Collins was one of Stewart's regular customers, and Walter Collins is the subject of the movie Changeling, Angelina Jolie's son. That's who Walter Collins is. At the time, there was this like theory called the abused abuser theory, which stated that a person who was sexually assaulted as a child would go on to abuse children themselves. And I think that that's true. You know, I do feel like that there comes a point where we talked about this before too, with like incestual behavior, where like if you got a whole family and all y'all did was fuck your relatives, it's not going to be weird when a relative gets pregnant by another relative. That's just not going to be weird. Or like if you were molested as a child, that kind of sets the trajectory of what you see sex as. Mm-hmm. If you were raped as a child, that sets the tone for what you're going to see sex as. I think that unless you get the help, of course, you can kind of roll back some of that trauma. But I think to a certain extent, it's always in you. And I know this is probably an unpopular opinion. I believe that there are people who are born homosexuals, of course. I think that the universe rolls the dice on all of us. And sometimes we come out one way and sometimes we come out other ways. But I also feel like some homosexual behaviors are taught through trauma. Mm-hmm. You had an uncle that molested you for years and all you're used to is that level of gay sex. I'm not saying rape, like inappropriate sex, but there are some boys who find that it's not as bad as they, you know what I mean? Like the experience isn't as bad as they thought it was going to be. And then they get used to it. And I think if you get used to somebody anally raping you night after night, and you know, that could also mold your sexual appetite for that type of sex. And where else can you get that type of sex healthily? through normal adult homosexual, relationships. Mm-hmm. So I think it's possible. And I tried to say that in the most respectable way possible and respectful way possible, because I have a lot of gay male friends. So the last thing I want to do is offend any of them. But I can't help but think I think that is also a possibility, that you could be raped enough.
Well, yeah, because it kind of goes into, I believe, learned behavior at that point. It's, you kind of just you got to go with what you know.
Yeah.
And what you're used to.
Yeah. And we see it too with when priests molest. I feel like in certain situations where priests are, especially the ones that are just like nicer, they're not like brutally molesting people, but they're men or boys, but they're like luring them in and trying to like coach them into certain behaviors. I think that's how you get there. Mm-hmm. I think you can get there that way too. So yeah, sure. You can love who you love. But when it comes to like sexuality, I think sometimes is what we see. I look at it the same way as like when we're discovering parts of ourselves as we go along. There are some people, it works on the heterosexual way too. There are some people who learn that you're supposed to be heterosexual.
Yeah.
And then they realize, well, not so much, and you got some women who are molested by their fathers and they only now like women because they can't even look at men, so I think it could work in many different ways. That's the way the universe works. So, sorry, y'all, my allergies. Now, the Ralph situation happened. They believe Walter Collins was the one of the customers from Ralph's, which is the reason why he eventually ends up kidnapping Walter Collins as well. And it's not really clear why Stewart wanted to do any of this. It is believed that Stewart's sexual perversion, quote unquote, escalated around 1925 when he started inquiring to his next door neighbor, who was a doctor, about the efficiency of quicklime in dissolving human bodies. So you got a neighbor who's a doctor and you're like, yo, let me ask you a question. How long you think it take for a body to dissolve if you put quicklime on it? And the doctor's like, when a body is in quicklime, the moisture in the ground regulates the chemical's destructive power. End quote. And the doctor's like, why the fuck you want to know any of this? By the following spring, Stewart told his father, Dad, I wish you would buy some acreage and I will start a chicken ranch. I've seen some land that will suit me and we'll make arrangements for you to see it on next Sunday.
What? That's how it went. Like, I think you should buy some land. So I booked on Booksy. Like, okay.
So I inquired on Redfin and the realtor got back to me and we have a tour on Sunday. So he's like, so I'll make arrangements for you to see it next Sunday. So his father bought him 3 acres of farmland to start a chicken ranch in Wineville.
A nigga to buy me a one piece.
Look.
And one piece is one piece of chicken, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't spend any money last weekend, so I'm going to shut the fuck up. But I was going to say, I'm in a relationship. That's true. But that's also just, it's very rare for me to go a whole weekend and not spend any money. Like a dime. And it's not because we were out places and they just bought it all the time. It was more because we went to a place that everything was free. So it's just like, what is there to buy?
You know what?
Exactly.
I haven't spent money in 2 weeks.
Damn.
Maybe longer.
Damn.
Yep.
I missed it.
I bought cat food.
Actually, I say I miss it, but I feel like every relationship I was in, I supported a motherfucker. I'm so tired of spending money. Anyway, so right. I'm so sick of it. So his father buys him the acreage of farmland to start a chicken ranch in Wineville. But Stewart sucked at it and he couldn't do it alone. So obviously, this kid is like, I don't know what I'm doing for real. I'm going to need some help. So Stewart tells George, boom, I'm going to run up to Saskatoon.
Oh, yeah. Let's go there.
And I'm going to look up one of Fred's kids, which is his sister Winifred's children. Winifred and Fred. Winifred is his sister, who they say is his mother. Fred is her husband. They have kids. Now, mind you, he's plotting on taking one of this man's fucking kids to help him with his farm. But do you think that's what he really wanted for? So,
child labor laws say no.
He heads out the following morning. He spent 2 weeks with the Clarks before deciding that he was going to take Sanford.
So all of this was just a way for him to get a little boy.
Yes.
Basically. He had his father purchase land so that he could be a farmer and justify needing the help of a child.
Uh-huh.
So what would he have done if his dad said no? Or was it just that because he was a brat, he knew he
wasn't going to say no.
He's like, I'm going to get it anyway.
They didn't like dealing with his fits of rage. And he was such a douche that they were like, just give him what the fuck you want.
Just buy him the land.
Because that also gets him the fuck out of our house. So now we ain't got to worry about him for real. This only works out in our favor.
But now he's a rapist.
Well, sure, but
no one knows that, but you know.
But not here.
Damn, now my eye itches.
See, told you. Allergies. They're a bitch. I think it's his room. It's the carpet. So he's plotting on taking this man's kid. He heads out the following morning. He spent 2 weeks with the Clarks before deciding that he was going to take Sanford. 2 fucking weeks. I mean, to me, that's predatory. Because they say as soon as he got there, he knew he wanted Sanford. So he didn't tell him, though, that, I'm planning to have him work on my farm. What he told him was that he was going to take them to Regina, which is another area. The Clarks agreed, and Sanford went with Stewart on a trip to Regina. But the day that they left, Stewart told him that they were actually going right to Los Angeles, which isn't in Canada.
That's not Canada.
So
that's not Canada.
Sanford would later say that he was surprised because he wanted to go to fucking Regina. He like, yo, I ain't signed up for this. How the fuck we get to California?
I get it.
He didn't know where he was going. He didn't know what he was going to do when he got there. He didn't even resist. He was like, I have no idea what the fuck is going on. And when they got to the Canadian border, Stewart left Sanford in the car. He went to go speak to immigration. He went back to the car. He told Sanford to come into the station. Sanford wouldn't, he basically said, look, you're going to be asked a series of questions, but there's one question in particular I need you to answer a certain way. You were born in the United States. Sanford told the lie to immigration that he was born in the United States. Immigration let him into the country.
Okay.
So this was the day they formed TSA. I'm just joking. This is not the day. So they got to George and Louise's house, the Northcott's parents. They stayed there for 2 weeks. Then they move out to the property in Wineville, which was in Riverside County. For a week, Stewart and Sanford lived alone at the property, and they were just cleaning things up. They were really only living in a tent. I mean, there wasn't even a house there yet. Stewart was sleeping on a cot, and Sanford was sleeping on the ground. And when they started to build the farm, George, because George is a contractor, he would help them build the ranch. Because obviously, that's what he did for a living. So first they built the house, then they built the garage, and then they built 2 chicken coops. Now, apparently, when George would come to the ranch and spend the night, even though he was helping them build the ranch, he would sleep on the floor with his nephew, and Northcott would sleep in the cot. God. How you let your daddy sleep on the floor and you sleeping in the bed? This dude's a dick.
He's like, there's room for one.
Sorry.
There's one bed. It's a twin.
Which to me only also doubled down on the idea that George was an absolute pussy. Mm-hmm. Because to me, like, if he was as abusive and as crazy and as deranged, why couldn't he stand up And you know what it could have been? It could have been that he was old as hell, and this kid is like a strapping young boy. I think Northcott's like 19 at this point. He's probably thinking, this dude could fuck me up. He's crazy as shit. He was scared of him too.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure he was scared.
Oh, you want me to sleep on the cot? Bet. You want me to help you build your farm? Yes. You want me to buy the farm? Yes.
Shit he had to say.
I think he just didn't want any shit from him. Now, the farm had a garage. It had 6 chicken units, a rabbit hutch, a goat house, a brooder, which is apparently a heated house for chickens and piglets. Had to look that up because I'm not a fucking farmer.
Okay.
A grain
No
house.
one expected you to be.
And clearly I'm upset because I don't make and I don't grow my own
you're
food.
Not a farmer? There's plenty of land in Illinois.
And hen runs. So they did all of that. And as we know, it was not really all that close to any highways. It was kind of off the beaten path, but there was a house that was nearby. It wasn't, it wasn't a property that was always occupied though. People kind of like cycled out of it all the time. It was basically an Airbnb.
Right. That's what it sounds like.
But it was vacant most of the time. So every now and again, Stewart would have to deal with his neighbors when all of the shit went down. But for the most part, not really. Now that the farm is built, though, this is kind of where things get weird. So Stewart would make Sanford get up at 5:30 or 6 a.m. in the morning to feed and water the chickens, which water the chickens is a very weird thing to say.
Water the chickens?
Yeah.
That sounds like an excuse to get away.
It's like you water plants.
Oh, I can't go. I gotta go water my chickens.
Water. They are living creatures. So are plants, though. So, and so his job was to also help with breakfast. So he would make breakfast, and then only then, after Stewart got out. I mean, after the breakfast was made, did Stewart get out of bed? He didn't get out of bed till the breakfast was done.
I don't blame him.
Not mad.
He doesn't dream of labor.
Nope.
I want that life for me.
No. And once he was out of the bed, he would, pitch in to do different shit and like help on the ranch. But he would spend a lot of time running errands. And he wasn't just running errands for the farm. He was really out hunting. Sanford used to say that you never really knew exactly where he was going.
Okay.
So Sanford was basically turning into his slave. He spent most of his time doing endless chores, and he was not allowed to socialize with anyone. Stewart didn't want him to go out. He didn't want him to talk to people at all, and he didn't want him to talk about the things that they were doing on the ranch. Now, this reminds me of another case that I did about Colleen Stan, the girl that lived in the box under that couple's bed for years.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I did that episode, but that was one of the things he did with her when he started to let her out of the box. What was wild, for a long time, she wasn't allowed to talk to anybody or anything. He wasn't even trying to really school her completely on lies to tell, because he knew he had her so well that she wouldn't just say anything. But then when she started being around other people, that's when he started like incorporating lies and things like that. And he would tell her like, don't talk to anybody. And so everybody just thought she was just like this weird babysitter that just didn't talk.
A weird babysitter.
Like, yeah, that weird girl that never speaks. It's just that.
Like, why don't y'all think this is weird?
I don't understand how
why do people just gloss over shit.
I think it's that, and we just talked about this too, where I think it's like that chronic disorder of ain't my business.
Yeah.
Ignorance
is bliss.
Yeah. It's like, you
just don't want to know.
It's like, I ain't even trying to get into that low key. You know what I mean? Like, because then too, if I get into it, that means I got to do something about it. And I got my own family.
Yeah, but it's like, you don't at least want to know.
All I say is call the motherfucking cops.
Yeah, I'm like, you don't want to help at all. Yeah. You don't want to make sure the girl is okay. Like, you just really rather go on. Not knowing.
And I personally just feel like this is what they are for. The police are around for that purpose. I'm not getting involved. What I will do is stop coming over here to get your wife's fucking apple pie when I know that you got a bitch under your bed. That's what, you know what I mean? Like, people try so desperately to not be rude. I talked about this too already. When Oprah was saying, remember I told you that thing on Oprah when, maybe I just posted this on my Instagram stories, but it was like Oprah had this psychologist on where he was like, women fear men women fear that men want to kill them, but men fear that women want to humiliate them. And even though the fears are different, women to me have more of a mortal fear, being that you may murder me. But let's say a guy got onto an elevator and you thought he looked hella sus. It's very unlikely that you're going to back out of the elevator and say, I'll take the next one. That's very unlikely. What you would do, because you don't want to seem like a complete and total asshole, is you may get on the elevator anyway. And the therapist was saying women will sacrifice themselves in a way by getting into a steel box with a man that she feels uncomfortable with, that she in her head is afraid is possibly going to murder her, instead of humiliating him.
I mean, yeah.
It's mad true.
Because majority of the time you think you're just overthinking something.
Yeah, you're like, it ain't even that deep. You know, and then you do it anyway. And I ain't gonna lie, people do it with black people all the time. It's like, I may see 3, young teenage boys, 2 of them niggas got locks, the other one's got, and they look like, all 3 of them look like King Von. One look like Lil Durk. Other one looked like G Herbo, back when they were broke. And back when King Von was alive. And then you're like, but I'm not going to be that person that goes across the street, even though I'm getting triggered. And I'm starting to kind of feel like I may be in trouble. Mm-hmm. It's like you just don't want to be that person. So, and in this case, and I'm saying that, and I feel like sometimes neighbors do that too, where it's just like, I don't want to be involved. I'm pretty sure when me and my ex-boyfriend were fighting a lot, I'm pretty sure that's why my neighbors moved.
They literally rather just move.
They literally left. It was an Asian couple.
Oh.
And they don't play around with a lot of noise and a lot of excess anything. They live next door. And the nights that we were getting to arguments, I would sleep in here. And I was like, you just stay in the motherfucking room. Leave me alone. But he would come in and out of this room, screaming, yelling, slamming the door, tossing this TV on the floor, doing all types of wild shit. And this wall is mad thin. So I'm in my room yelling at him. He's yelling at me. I'm asking him to stop slamming this door. And then it's even worse because this door, it locks from the outside. So the whole time now I'm fearful. I'm like, could you please stop slamming the door? He used to slam the door so hard he broke this frame. Mm-hmm. So all of the slamming, all of the arguments, all this other shit. And I'm like, I know my neighbors hear this. I know they hear this. They moved. And I said, I know they didn't just move just because.
I mean, they could have just moved.
They could have. But they had complained, not about the argument. They had complained about the music before. And I didn't know what the fuck that motherfucker was doing while I was at work.
I mean, honestly, I do feel like they would have gone to management before they packed up and moved if they really felt the need to stay.
That's true.
Like if they really wanted to stay.
But my point is, some people just don't even think it's worth it. Yeah. We talked about moving anyway. There's some weird shit going on next door. Yeah. It's violent. We don't want to be involved in it. And so next thing I knew, it does feel excessive. I would probably just call the police before I moved.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like this dude is acting like an asshole.
First of all,
I mean, because it's like, damn, y'all nice. Y'all could help me.
Yeah. I'm like, first of all, I hate moving. Second of all, like, I'm sure something's going on.
And I thought about that when I hit this section because I was like, wow, here you got a child that's in this situation and these neighbors are right here. Mm-hmm. But anyway, whatever. I was saying that we went off on a tangent, but Sanford, he was not allowed to socialize with anyone. There were even children next door, but he was not allowed to play with them. So Stewart also didn't want Sanford to go to school. So the last thing they needed was for people to inquire about when the last time he was in school, because then they would find out that he's actually from Canada. Or
that he's never actually been to school.
No, but there were multiple occasions where teachers would come to the ranch and ask why Sanford did not attend school. They were like, why are you not in school?
Yeah.
And this was back, it's shit. That probably ended in the early 2000s with our generations when older people, when they would catch you outside, they could be a motherfucking neighbor. They see you outside sitting on the porch and they know your mama is at work and they'll be like, ain't you supposed to be in school? And you'll be worried the whole motherfucking day because you're like, damn, Miss Clark saw me. Shit. I know she gonna tell my granny. I know she gonna tell her. You know what I mean? And then what happened? As soon as you get home, your granny be like, did you go to school today?
See, I heard you never skipped school.
Yeah.
That was your era.
Yeah.
But
Y'all skipped school. Y'all just didn't try to go home.
I never skipped school.
Well, no, I'm just saying your generation skipped school. It was just that y'all were going to the mall and shit.
Oh, yeah. Everybody else was outside.
Yeah, we were like trying to be outside. It's like we were just hanging around on somebody else's porch.
Yeah.
We ain't had no bus fare. We ain't had no money. All we had is enough money for 2 bags of Flaming Hots, a motherfucking 10-cent juice, maybe a Polish from Mr. Sub. From the sub shop. You know, a super donut. I spent 25 cents on a super donut earlier. I don't have it. Yeah, okay, we're not. I'm not winning at this.
Definitely didn't do that now because super donuts are not 25 cents. They're like $1.
Damn, you can buy a whole box of those too. I know a place.
Yeah, it's called Amazon.
Oh, fuck, really?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I was talking about the places where the stores get them.
Oh, no, Amazon got them.
Oh, damn, okay.
I don't know if I trust them.
Well, because low-key, I was thinking about going there to get some of those, like, little strawberry cookies, the ones with the frosting.
They don't taste the same anymore.
Of course they don't.
They feel like they altered the taste.
And of course they did.
Either that or I'm just old.
They probably done changed the ingredient that don't exist no more, some shit. Mm-hmm. All right, so let me continue because we got a minute. So here we go. So the story was Sanford was told that he was supposed to say that he was attending a Catholic school in Los Angeles. The teacher didn't come back to the farm. I'm sorry, the teacher did come back to the farm, but that was why Stewart was away, and Stewart was fucking pissed. So he ended up writing a letter in 1927 addressed to the Riverside County Superintendent of Schools. And in the letter, Stewart claimed that Sanford was 16 or was turning 16 when Sanford was only 14, and that until about 8 months ago, he had been in school in Canada and he was being taught by the Jesuit fathers. But because he was sick, he was advised by the doctor that he needed to rest from the studies for a few months.
For forever.
So
for all of eternity.
So he currently is studying for priesthood at a Catholic church and is entering the College of St. John's in Montreal in 1928. That was the plan. That's the story that they telling people.
Okay.
So he left Canada to spend 1 or 2 days a week doing special work under his tutelage. And he's spending 7 to 14 hours every week on subjects like Latin, English, theology, history, and math. He even sent a fake curriculum that broke down the subjects and how many weeks he was supposed to study those subjects. The letter was signed by a reverend, and it was addressed to Northcott's P.O. box, but they didn't know that at the time. And turns out
P.O. boxes?
A post office box, yeah. Oh. Turns out the Northcotts lived near the Reverend who he used. They lived near him when they lived in Los Angeles, but the Reverend didn't know them.
Why
he just used his name.
Involve so many people. Like, what happened to this being sacred?
No.
Like, why does the whole
because information don't move as fast. So it'll take a while before they even figure this out.
I just don't know why he had to involve so many people because he's lazy.
Yeah, well, low key too, because I'm like, technically the superintendent's office could have just called that reverend to verify, because they did have phones. Walter Collins' mom worked at the phone company, so they did have phones. She could have just fucking called and been like, "Yo, are you father such and such? Is such and such learning whatever?" And kind of do a little reconnaissance to see if it's true. But apparently she didn't. So she took his word for it. Now, Stewart started to sodomize Sanford. When they moved to the ranch, he was raping him 2 to 3 times a week. Stewart would coat his penis in Vaseline before raping him, and sometimes ask Sanford to sodomize him. So he would also physically abuse him. He would hit him he would slap him, punch him, kick him. He would use sticks. He would use laths, which are those thin wood pieces used to build houses and shit. He would use those to beat him with. Now it's time for me to act. I'm about to sip.
What? Now it's time for me to act.
Here's where Sanford was questioned by the prosecutor. Sanford was questioned on the stand by Loyal Kelly. Loyal is kind of a pretty name.
That is pretty.
Isn't that Chris Brown's kid name?
It is.
Loyal Kelly was the co-prosecutor. He asks, "What did he do?" "He kept beating me all the time." With what? Anything he can get a hold of. State some of the things he would beat you with. A club or a lath, or he used his belt a lot of the times. What was that? A leather belt? The belt he wears to hold up his pants, leather belt. Which end of the belt did he use on you? Both ends. Did one of them have a buckle on it? Yes, sir. Heavy or light? Heavy. Did he use that end on you? Yes, sir. Did you remember any of the things that he punished you for in that manner? He would just lose his temper, anything at all I would do if I would not work fast enough or anything. Was that a frequent occurrence or just occasionally? Frequent. Frequent? Yes, sir. You have mentioned the lath and the club and belt. What do you mean by club? Well, just a board, anything he can get hold of. Any piece of timber he can get hold of.
What part of anything he can get a hold of?
You know, lawyers be doing that shit because they be trying to... So what lawyers try to do, they over-ask the question so they can get it at every angle. So if he says, oh, he hit me with a club, what do you identify as a club?
Like what?
Like Flintstones? Like they need all of that on the record.
Like, but also when someone says anything they can get a hold of, it's like, oh, let me pick up this shoe and beat you with it. Oh, let me pick up this because I can get a hold of it.
In the words of Eminem, anything
that can be grabbed.
Like basically anything that would hurt me, he would pick up and hit me with.
Yeah.
He's not going to hit me with a pillow.
Yeah, like he's clearly out here to do harm.
To fuck me up. Exactly. So, but it's excruciating. I've maybe because I read entirely too many court documents, but sometimes when you're reading these testimonies and you hear the questioning, it is so repetitive that you're like, why do you keep asking this person this? And then also like the detachment from it is irritating because you're like, do you realize that this is a child that has to relive this?
Yeah, I'm like, how far down this hole do you need to go in order for you to understand that he was hitting him with anything he could get a hold of?
Exactly. He said, ever strike you with anything else? I don't remember. Anything at all he could get a hold on, he strikes me with. And did he ever strike you with his fists? Yes, sir. Were you ever struck on the head with anything? Yes, sir. What? All kinds of things. His belt or club or anything. Do you remember any particular occasion when he struck you on the head and with what? Yes, sir. What? I was struck on the head with a club one day. What did it do to your head when you were struck on that occasion? It made a big cut in it. Did you have a scar from it? Yes, sir. Do you know where the scar is on your head? Yes, sir, it is. Let me see where it is. Right here. Were you ever struck on the body anywhere to the extent that it left scars on you? Yes, sir. Whereabouts on the body? All over. Were you ever cut anywhere? Yes, sir. Where? On the wrists. Whereabouts on the wrists? Is there any scar from that? Yes, sir. You walk over there and show the jury, will you? What made that scar? A knife. Who struck you with the knife? Stewart threw it at me. What kind of knife was it? Butcher knife. What did he throw the butcher knife at you for? Do you know? He got mad at me. Do you know what about? I don't know. No. Besides being struck, did you ever do anything else? Did he ever do anything else to you in the way of hurting you? Yes, sir. What? He poured water on me at different times. Hot water. Hot water. Yes, sir. Whereabouts on you? On the back. And are there any of those scars on your back? Do you know? Yes, sir. Will you remove your sweater and shirt? He does.
Is this not humiliating?
If you want a motherfucker to go to jail, it ain't.
Yeah.
I strip butt ass naked if it proved that motherfucker get an electric chair.
Yeah.
Just show your back to the jury, will you? Gentlemen of the jury, if you get a closer look, you will observe the boy's back from the top of the shoulder down to the middle of the backbone on the right side near the backbone. Do you know what caused that scar there? Yes, sir. What was that? Hot water. There appears to be some other scars on the left side in the middle of the back and to the left. Do you know what caused those? The club or belt or anything else? Did Stewart do anything for you after to help you? Yes, sir. What? He fixed it up. He took my shirt off and put some salve on it. Were you ever injured by Stewart in any way that caused you to lose consciousness out there, Sanford? No. How many times were you hit on the head? A lot of times.
Like he gonna count?
12. No. Do you know how many? No, sir. Were you afraid of Stewart? Yes, sir. Are you afraid of him now? Yes, sir. I think you testified that you were at times left alone there on the ranch while Stewart was away before Jessie, his sister, came. Why didn't you run away then? I was too scared to. Why were you scared to? Stewart always threatened me not to, that he would kill me if I did. Didn't you ever run away before Jessie came? No. How much do you weigh now? 117 when I was last weighed. 117 pounds when you were last weighed. Yes. Yes, sir. Do you know what you weigh when the officers got you to the ranch? Yes, sir. How much? 98.5 pounds, Dang. Sanford replied.
Yikes.
He would beat him so much that neighbors could hear it. One neighbor would testify against Stewart at trial, stating that he had seen him beat Sanford at least 9 times across the back and shoulders. The neighbors even moved because of all of the beatings. Stewart had once forced Sanford to beat him to give him even more reason to beat him. Like I said before, Stewart would go on these fucked up errands, and according to Sanford, he would bring back boys so he could, quote, do them.
Ugh.
Here we go. Acting. Did you ever go and look at those boys when they were there? Not to see their face. Why not? Stewart would take them right in the house at night, and it was dark. When he brought the boys there to the house, as you described, what did you do? I would stay outside. Why did you stay outside? Stewart told me to. Did you ever try to see in the windows and see what was going on? Yes, sir. Did you ever see in the window? Okay, see what? Yes, sir. But he would always have them covered. So he always had the windows covered. Mm-hmm. Covered with what? Blankets or sheets and things. How long would he stay in the house with the boys? About an hour or an hour and a half, and then take them away. How large were the boys that you saw? They were not very big by comparison to your size now. About my size and smaller. Stewart, it will be observed, was only interested in easy prey. He only wanted small kids. I mean, overpowering was part of the thrill of the hunt for him, and it didn't include having to chase motherfuckers around and, trying to fight. He wasn't trying to do all that. Yeah, he ain't trying to get defeated. How frequently did he bring the boys there that way? Not very frequently. Could you tell us about how often? Well, sometimes he would bring one a week, and sometimes it would be a long time. All this time, he was committing sodomy on you, was he? Yes, sir. When he brought these boys out there, did it make any difference in his relationships with you, with his relations with you? No, he would not do it to me anymore while they were there, but afterwards. Did he ever take any precautions when he brought the boys there that you know of? Well, he would keep their eyes covered when he brought them up there. He would keep their eyes covered when he brought them up there. Yes, sir. So they could not see where they were coming. So you got a bunch of blindfolded kids.
That's creepy.
Walking into a fucking farm. Now, there was this boy named Junior Thompson who would testify against Stewart in court. Junior would insist that he was telling the truth because he was told as a kid that it was a terrible thing to lie. So you got to believe me. One evening in 1927, he went to a park with his father, mother, and his sister. His mother was selling tickets to the picture show, and his father and his sister, they just wandered off somewhere else. So Junior, he decided that he was going to sit on the balcony. He was going to watch the bathers. Bathers are just, people who are swimming. Mm. When the man came up to him, this is, who he would later identify as Stewart. The man would start talking to him about the bathers and, other things. After a few minutes, Junior went downstairs and out to the lake to watch people rolling in the canoes. But Stewart followed him there, and he sat on the bench right beside him. Junior testified that Stewart wanted to know if he wanted to make some easy money. And so Junior was like, okay, how? Shit, you ain't said nothing but a word. Say less. The man said, quote, his nuts kind of tickled and he wanted him to play with them.
Ew. I'd be so mad.
Fucking gross.
I'd be so mad.
Oh.
Like, what would make you say that to someone? To anyone?
It gets creepier.
Oh.
Junior was absolutely like, no, the fuck? The man then proceeded to ask him to go to his car, and see his little dog and watch him do some tricks. And Junior was like, cool.
What?
That's different.
Junior a little stupid.
And he went to Stewart's car. There was a small dog there, mind you, a little scraggly, but there. And he told him to get in the car. And Junior told him that he didn't want to. And when he grabbed his arm and he tried to pull him in the car, Junior jerked loose and he ran away. So now
hands off of me.
Stewart is chasing. Now this is the wild part. This is the creepy part to me was the fact.
Oh, this is the creepy part.
Well, no. The creepy part is what I said before. The fact that he sat next to him on this bench. And then when the kid moved and oh God, he asked him if he could tickle his balls.
Like, don't say that to people.
Why are you talking to me? Why are you talking to me? Why are you talking to me? So now Stewart is chasing him. He's trying to find the park policeman. But you know what he does see? He sees his father. Junior sees his father.
Oh.
So his father and Stewart is just standing there. He's like, fuck. And so Stewart lets him go. And so Junior told his father, he's like, yo, this motherfucker just tried to take me. And his father's like, what happened? And his father obviously was pissed. So he tried to chase Stewart. He caught up with him, and then he had this little penknife. So then he starts to kind of like try to grab his arm, and then Stewart jerked around, and they were, jerking around on each other.
They fighting in the street.
Basically. And he looked at him, and he was like, what the fuck is wrong with you? What's the idea? What's the big idea? And he was like, what are you doing? And basically the father, was like, you know what you're doing is wrong, right? And Stewart started to back away towards the park entrance. I would hope so. And so the father followed him. And once he
tried to ease out.
He straight homered into the bushes. And once he got outside the park, he ran away and he couldn't find him. Stewart. Now, this is what pisses me off about people being able to represent themselves.
I thought you were talking about people named Stewart.
No.
I was like, damn.
No, this is the part that pisses me off about people who have the privilege of representing themselves. Stewart cross-examined that father during the trial.
The one that has no prior knowledge?
No, I don't want to talk to you. You tried to kidnap my child. I think it's so offensive. Like, I understand that Stewart is supposed to have his rights. You know what I mean? And there is shit that Stewart is technically supposed to, he has the right to defend himself.
Yeah, but you're not a lawyer, bro.
But I don't want to talk to you. Like, you shouldn't be. I just don't think a perpetrator should be allowed to talk to the victims.
No, that seems very triggering.
There should be like a proxy attorney.
I mean, I'm sure it is now.
It probably isn't.
Probably not.
Mm-hmm.
I would hope so, but I doubt it.
So Stewart cross-examines the father during the trial because, of course, this douchebag, he represented himself. And so he asked him, he's like, what did you intend to do with that penknife? And the father was like, well, all I could. He was
know that's right.
My plan was to fuck you up with it.
Stand on that.
Now, Sanford ended up on the farm for 2 years. They do not know how many children Northcott molested or even attempted to molest. But it was that second year on the ranch when Stewart finally did the unthinkable. Now, because Stewart was representing himself, he would display a roller coaster of emotion through this process after his arrest. They said he would bounce around from admitting it to denying it. Like, he was all over the place. But there was one thing that he absolutely denied every time, and that was the killing of a Mexican boy who he claimed he killed in self-defense. That was the only one that he was like, I killed him in self-defense.
It's not funny, but it's just like, why that one?
And unfortunately, this is the end of part 1.
Oh. That was actually very funny.
What? Because
it's so stupid.
It's so ridiculous. And I'm sorry, because we ain't even got into the crime, but there's so much more here. Like, we haven't even gotten to Walter Collins. And as I was like doing it, and I was like, I'm at page 16, and that's too long for one episode. And I have not even made it to the first kill. I'm in trouble.
I was going to say, this can't be all of it.
So
it's just not
part
far
2.
enough.
There will be a part 2. And we'll do it next week.
Okay.
So far, sorry. I know you hate me because I was a week behind. And the last thing I would ever do is, fuck with anybody's head. But I didn't know until I knew. I was like, oh, so basically this episode needs to end right about here. I wrote more, but because there's so many court documents and there's so much good shit in those documents, I was like, no, I need all of it.
Shit in the documents in general.
I need all of it. Like, I want all of it. And what's wild too is Northcott, they believe he killed up to 20 kids, and we're only going to examine the ones that they know of. And that's not many. So the next episode will be, probably an hour and a half. Probably an hour and a half too. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's standard.
Yeah. So,
ooh, Beauty and the Beast is coming to Shakespeare Theater.
Ooh, cute. And actually, we are not even at an hour and a half, but I'm not going any further. All right. So I hope you all, I don't know why I end with that. How about y'all just leave each other the fuck alone?
Yeah.
Leave each other alone.
Me especially.
Stop being weird.
Leave me the fuck alone.
Stop being weird though, because part of my problem in this, and there isn't, if we're being quiet this episode, is because this motherfucker is really not that much different than Albert Fish or Carl Panzram. Actually, nobody's like Carl Panzram, so I'm gonna take that back. We gonna leave him in his little box. And he didn't really, yeah, he was busy, but when I was researching this, I was like, wow, it's very similar. A lot of the things that I was learning, because it was around the same time, they're a part of the same time period. It's just that Albert Fish was on the East Coast and Northcott was on the West Coast, and Northcott actually had a farm where he had the freedom to do this shit. That's what almost makes it a little worse. Albert Fish was killing kids and being terrible, but he was also just like pulling kids off the street, and New York was so weird and messed up. This is almost like a rural version of that. And also Northcott was young. I mean, he was 19 when he started doing this shit. That's young. That's very young to be a predator. That's how you also know that something ain't right upstairs.
I mean, a lot ain't right upstairs.
Elevator don't go all the way up to the top.
The elevator don't move.
Yeah, it's stuck. It's definitely stuck. So I will see you all next week. We're gonna record. I'll be ready. We're gonna conclude Wineville chicken coop murders. All right, does that work for y'all? Hope it works for you, because I'm twisted at the moment. I'm a little tipsy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, okay. All right. Love y'all. Mean it. And thanks for being so patient. You all were, well, there's only 12 of you that probably listen, but.
Girl, shut up.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.